riffs are too repetitive, the lyrics make no sense. All the songs are B-sides and the cover art's a mess. There's so much here to tear apart. Listen to it for a week, now that week has passed. It's Why I Hate This Album podcast with Tim and Garrett.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Why I Hate This Album. I am one of your hosts, Garrett Harvey. With me as always, co-host extraordinaire, Ringo to my John, Timothy Richardson. Tim, how you doing?
Pretty good, actually.
Oh yeah? What's got you in such good spirits?
Well, we kind of are almost taking a week off. We did not listen to an album or a terrible song this week.
Oh my god, what the fuck are we going to talk about then?
Well, we're doing something slightly different this week. Having completely run out of bad songs and bad music videos to talk about in the Prepisodes, we turned to a music-related movie instead. This week we watched Yesterday, released May 4th, 2019.
Wow, this is a change of pace, Tim, but this is what the Prepisode is all about. We're keeping it fresh, doing new stuff, slick stuff, neat stuff. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please watch the video where Garth Brooks joins Facebook. Well, you're welcome. But that's not why we're here, Tim. The reason we're here today is to talk about this movie. So I'm going to ask, do you hate this movie?
I don't hate it. I actually kind of liked it. That being said, it's a bad movie that is not a very good movie. It makes no sense, and we will of course get into all of that later. We should also mention up front that we'll be spoiling this movie like we do with all albums and songs. So if you would like to watch this without it getting spoiled, go ahead and do that and then come back to this.
We're not going anywhere. We're on your phone.
Yeah, you've already downloaded it. We gotcha.
Yeah, okay, well, that's not what I meant at all. We appreciate it. I just meant that they can go out and watch the movie, which, well, hold on. Wait, I don't want to get too crazy here. We're getting off topic. Let's keep this train going, but just suffice it to say, you're right, Tim. We are going to spoil the shit out of this. It's just impossible to do what you and I do without getting into the nitty-gritty. Don't worry, folks. This is not why I hate this movie. This is a remix of the Prepisode format just to keep things fun and interesting.
Yep. Did you hate it?
No, but I really might get there.
Okay.
So I am curious, had you seen this movie prior to this week?
I actually had. I watched this in theaters back in, I think, July. I watched it a second time to discuss it here. Obviously, pretty big fan of the Beatles, which may be the least interesting opinion anyone could ever have.
Sure.
But that definitely helped me whenever I say I enjoyed this. I enjoyed hearing the Beatles in different versions. Have you seen this before?
Fresh to me, Tim, all new. I had not seen it. I was familiar with the trailer. I intended to go see this movie. Me just like you. No big shock. Huge fan of the Beatles. You and I read what was that book that was like every Stephen King book put together in length? Remember this? About the Beatles? Like way too in-depth.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember what it was called.
I've forgotten more about them than I know about myself, but then again, I lose time.
You do.
Or was it? Yeah, that's true. But just happened. But for the most part, I fucking love the Beatles, so I was super on board with the premise for this movie, which we're going to get into in just a moment. But before we do, as is customary on this show, we need to understand the background, a little bit of the context in which this film was made. So Tim, take us on a brief journey. How did this film come to be? And as a fun change of pace, just like everything else happening on this episode, I may drop in a little more on the history than normal because there's a lot to cover.
So just a few random pieces of information on the people making this. It was written by Richard Curtis, and he seems to specialize in romantic comedies. He wrote Love Actually, Four Weddings and a Funeral, Bridget Jones's Diary, and Mr. Bean, again, all romantic comedies.
I have to say right there, we're not going to dive into it, but that would have been really useful information going into the viewing experience of this movie.
It really would.
It might have changed expectations dramatically, and
Sure.
It would definitely contribute to my enjoyment. So go ahead.
Okay, well, adding to the confusion here, this was directed by Danny Boyle, who directed Trainspotting, Slumdog Millionaire, 28 Days Later, and 127 Hours. This movie, it's definitely the perfect combination of all of those things, right?
I did not see a lot of zombies or body horror, but you're right. For the most part, it is the next logical step in Danny Boyle's career.
Yeah, I think so.
God, I was so angry.
After you do the drugs, you do the zombies, you do the arm cutting off thing, spoilers. Yeah, I think Beatles are next. This stars Himesh Patel well as Jack Malik. From what I can tell, he is mostly a British soap opera star. He was in 556 episodes of something called EastEnders over a period of 8 to 9 years. Our British listeners may be much more familiar with him than I am.
Probably. I think EastEnders is one of the longest running British soap operas, I think. I'm guessing here. I didn't do the research on EastEnders. We just don't have the time. I'm curious, British listeners, is that more like your parents' generation? Does the youth watch it? As we will learn when we get into the movie, this man's talents have been wasted.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a soap opera?
Well, yeah, definitely. But, it might be one of those things where he didn't really know until he tried. So
no, I'm pretty sure he knew he could play guitar, sing, and play piano expertly.
Fair enough, because he does all of those things. That's one of the most interesting things about this movie is he does the Ray Charles thing.
He goes full Ray Charles. He goes the full Fox. Commits completely, plays the instruments, sings the songs, and we're getting ahead of ourselves, but they're fucking good.
Yeah, he does a very good job throughout this movie. Lily James plays his love interest, Ellie. She is from Baby Driver in the live-action version of Cinderella, in which she plays Cinderella.
Did you see Baby Driver?
I didn't.
The movie's fucking sweet.
Oh.
I have the soundtrack on vinyl. It's awesome.
I have heard the soundtrack. It is good.
Yeah, see that movie. It's even better.
All right. Obviously, it also stars Ed Sheeran, Garrett's second favorite sentient sloth man.
Big old pile of loose meat.
Kate McKinnon from SNL. She really hams it up as the agent. And then Joel Fry, who, again, I don't really think I've ever seen in anything, but he's the mostly terrible roadie.
Rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's fucking great.
Yeah. It was actually supposed to be released September 2019, but there was an issue with Paul McCartney. He had a lawsuit over the copyright to Beatles songs against Sony, who released this movie, and the rights were going to revert back to him sometime in late 2019. If they released it in fall, they lost all the rights to the songs they were including in the movie, so their solution was to just bump up the release to May, and I guess they got it grandfathered in. Apparently you can just do that. I wasn't aware that's how copyright worked, but...
Yeah, the law is very confusing. So the original version of the screenplay was not written by the Bridget Jones's Diary guy. It was actually written by Jack Barth. It was called cover version, and there's a few key differences to cover version. Do you read about this at all?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, not too much, but what I thought was interesting is in cover version, the lead character, Jack, achieves moderate success with the Beatles songs, whereas in this one, they become wildly successful. In the original, there was no focus on a love story.
That makes sense, because it does not seem to belong here. There are two different movies that are jammed together. Mm-hmm. There's several other movies that have similar plots.
Movies, comic books, television shows.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
There's a French movie that's pretty well regarded. It's sort of different in that there's one guy, he's the only person that remembers a rock star, but he doesn't have any musical talent, so his job is to go convince this person that forgot he wrote all these great songs. That's the role he is supposed to have.
Yeah, there's also weirdly a French graphic novel, literally called Yesterday, with a very similar plot. Yeah, that one was the one that made me go, that's shockingly similar.
Yeah.
That's some excellent background history. Do you want to talk a little bit at all about how much they had to pay in order to use this Beatles music?
It's something in the neighborhood of 50% of the budget of the movie, right? It's $11 million, something to that effect.
I got somewhere in the neighborhood of 10. That was the first thing I thought when I'm watching this movie is how in the world, how much do you have to pay to get all these Beatles songs? Now, granted, they're not being performed by the Beatles, so I think that halves or thirds your price.
Sure. Doesn't an actual Beatles song play over the credits? Or was that a cover? I don't remember.
I don't remember. Maybe Hey Jude plays at some point?
I think so, yeah.
My point being is that an upfront cost for a movie of $10 million just for the musical rights to re-sing the songs, it's shocking to me that this ever got made.
It seems like it should be prohibitively expensive, but, you've got I Am Sam.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was nervous going into it because this is one in a long string of Beatles-themed movies that some I've seen with you, some I've seen alone. First, let's talk about the one that everybody hates, and you and I saw, I think, together, and it's fine across the universe.
Right.
I've watched it one other time. There's some good performances of music.
Yeah, where I think this movie actually has a benefit over the other one is that he's a musician, so it makes sense organically to the story why these songs would be in it, whereas that one, they seem to have made a bunch of music videos and tried to cram a plot around. I mean, because you've seen music videos, they don't make any goddamn sense.
We pointed that out before.
Right, but it's very difficult to try and string together a coherent story whenever 50% 90% of your screen time is actual music videos.
So that brings me to the second one, the terrifically horrible I Am Sam. Have you seen that movie?
I have, but you hate Sean Penn with a passion that I cannot hope to.
I hate Sean Penn. Yeah. I hate that movie. I hate the terrible fake mental illness. And I'm not offended by it. It's a bad performance, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie sucks. I think that was one of the last times they let Michelle Pfeiffer be in a major film, too. That might have put her in movie jail till Ant-Man 2.
The other one is Mr. Holland's Opus.
Oh, sure. I got no issue with that.
Agreed.
Well done. All right, Tim, let's get into this movie.
I think we're going to go through the general plot first.
Yeah, just to give everyone a background of what's happening.
Right. So again, we'll be spoiling the shit out of this movie, so if you haven't seen it and you want to, you may want to wait to listen to this, but still download the episode. In fact, you can listen to it to this point, delete it, watch the movie, download the episode again, so we double up on the downloads.
They get it,
assuming that's how downloads work.
And it is not. If you're at a different IP address, maybe. And granted, it's you know what? This is not why we're here.
Yeah, download our stuff on a bunch of different computers.
That is what I'm saying. All right, let's get into the movie, Tim. Do you want to lay out the plot or you want me to?
I can, and then you can fill in where I forget stuff.
Sounds great.
All right. So it begins with Jack, who is a failed musician. He has a friend from childhood, Ellie, who is basically his manager and also drives him around to his poorly attended shows.
Not basically, she is his manager.
Sort of, but there's not much to manage. She seems to be his only fan. He's got a couple of other friends that pop up occasionally in the movie, but she gets him a job at a music festival in a children's tent, and he decides to quit music and go back to teaching high school somewhere in nondescript England, and Ellie begs him not to. They kind of get in a fight on the way home, and he gets out and bikes the rest of the way home.
And I want to point this out. This is one of multiple times in the film where he demands she stop the car and let him out. Is this a thing in Britain? Is that how you argue? You just get out of the car? You do that in America. Good luck, Jack. There may or may not be a bus coming. You don't just get out. But I'm not crazy, right? It happens like 3 times.
Yeah, it's weird because they do waste screen time repeating scenes, and then it seems like they've left some stuff out that would make this make more sense.
Yeah, there's some missing time in here.
Yeah, he's biking home, and for unexplained reasons, there is a power outage for, I think it's 12 seconds all over the planet.
Something like that.
Unfortunately, that power outage results in a bus not seeing him biking. He gets hilariously hit by a bus and goes into a coma with some of his teeth knocked out. The movie doesn't really address this, but I feel like another story this movie could tell is how that global power outage for 12 seconds caused like 10 million deaths.
Yeah, I might have brought down the general vibe, but you're right. They sort of, when he wakes up and he asks like what happened, they're like, yeah, you remember Y2K? Kind of that.
Yeah.
It kind of Y2K'd.
Once he gets out of the hospital, Jack's friends have a party to cheer him up. He gets a new guitar from Ellie because his old one was smashed in the wreck. He plays Yesterday for them and they're all taken aback. This is one of the scenes in the movie that I think really works.
To this point, Tim, I'm so on board.
Yeah, but they all demand to know when he wrote this amazing song and all swear up and down that they have never heard the song, have never heard of the Beatles, don't know what he's talking about. He thinks they're all lying. But after a bit of Googling, he realizes that during the blackout, he was launched into some alternate universe where he is the only person on Earth that remembers the Beatles. And as you would, he decides to record all of their songs on his own to finally make it as a musician.
Okay, so interesting. I think you were trying to insult me there.
You're a
I'm
thief,
curious.
is what I'm saying.
Shut up.
If you think you could get away with something, you do, because you're moralless.
Not moralless.
You have morals that no one else has, and you don't have morals that everyone else has.
Thank you.
You get into a lot of duels.
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, you seem to have some sort of code in which whenever people wrong you by bumping into you and whatnot on the street.
They're all manner of things, sure.
Yeah, but that's not a dueling offense, Garrett.
If I demand satisfaction.
It's weird that you've started carrying a glove to slap people with.
No, it's how I demand satisfaction.
It is. It is how you demand satisfaction.
Timothy, I demand satisfaction.
No, do not slap me. Damn it.
You know what, buddy? I want to apologize.
I'm going to shoot you. I am going to shoot you.
That was way harder than I meant to slap you. I'm super sorry.
I wish you had remembered your glove and hadn't just given me an open-handed slap.
Well, that's kind of your fault.
It's not.
You gave me
it's
so
not.
much shit. I was getting my glove to bring to the studio, and you're like, oh, you're going to bring your fucking dueling glove? What is with the dueling glove? You gave me all that bullshit, so I said, fine. I can't imagine I'll need to demand satisfaction at the studio. Well, you put me in a corner, and nobody puts baby in a corner.
I'm going to shoot you.
Pistols at dawn?
You won't see it coming.
That is not a duel.
I have not accepted a duel. I said I'm going to shoot you.
Just remember to aim to wound.
We'll see.
So we've set up the premise of the movie. He is the only person that's ever heard of the Beatles. The Beatles have never existed in this universe. And as we learn throughout the film, several other things have been omitted from yours and my common everyday existence, such as Coca-Cola.
Cigarettes is another one.
Cigarettes. What's another one?
Oasis, but I think that's just a bit.
Right. And I think Harry Potter.
Oh, yes. That's at the very end. The end implies that he's going to steal Harry Potter next.
So, one of the very first things he does when he realizes that this is the case, he starts writing down every Beatles song he can think of. Now, you implied earlier that I'm a thief and that I have loose morals or wrong morals. I don't remember how you put it. Doesn't matter. My question to you, Tim, is would you do this?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and they kind of try to address that. I don't know that they're necessarily successful because, again, they focus 50% or more of the movie on something that they shouldn't.
It's got a real mixed message. So he writes down all the songs. He's up in his room and he's practicing and he's like, well, obviously I'm going to do great now. So he goes down and his parents are very disappointed. And this scene for me works too.
Yeah, absolutely. The constant interruptions as he attempts to play Let It Be.
And these parents, for my money, steal every goddamn scene they're in.
Yeah, they're great.
He goes down, he tries to play Let It Be over and over, and his parents are just being classic parents and interrupting him, and they belittle it, and eventually he gets so frustrated he just leaves.
Yeah, this is what also works with this movie. He'll shout something like, "This is the greatest song you've ever heard. You're the first people on earth to ever hear this song. Why are you not impressed?" He goes out and he plays a bunch of Beatles songs at bars and children's parties to basically middling to no reaction.
Yeah, mostly people are not impressed.
All of these scenes are actually really well done because he's doing a very good job, but he's not overplaying it, and I can believe this reaction.
I was very curious to see if, as the original script had it, if this movie was going to play it to where doesn't really work today.
We can get into that after we get through the plot, but I think that's a very interesting point because he does a number of songs in this that I don't really think should work. The Beatles have a number of tracks that are so good that I think certainly would work no matter when they were written or when they were played, but there are definitely a number of songs that are not, and this movie does this weird thing where they conflate Back in the USSR with Let It Be, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
People would not react the same way to those songs. They don't now, and they didn't then.
Right.
Well, that's not true. They kind of did then.
So he plays one of these, I think it's the kids' party or something, and he again decides to quit. He says, it's clearly not the songs. The songs are great. It's me. People just don't like me. Ellie tells him, no, somebody decided to give you free studio time. So they go to record a demo.
Yeah, this is where we get a pretty solid Beatles montage.
They record in this shack by a railroad track, and they play a lot of like the early Beatles songs that are really high energy. Ellie sings harmony.
You can see them MacGyvering their way to trying to reproduce the sound of an album that only one person's ever heard.
Exactly. And they also have really good bits throughout the movie. He can't remember the words to Eleanor Rigby, and it just drives him crazy.
That gag works through the whole thing because there is a shit ton of lyrics in that song where you're like, wait, what? What is he doing in the church? The wedding has been... Fuck, I don't remember. Yeah, there's a lot that works in this movie. Up to this point, Tim, I love this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still on board.
And we're about to get to our first problem because they record a demo and it slowly takes off. He starts handing it out at work and people generally seem to like it. He gets on a local public access show and that's pretty good too. He plays In My Life.
Yeah, everything's great.
But unfortunately, Garrett, one of the people that hears him play is goddamn Ed Sheeran. And
God damn it.
This thing kind of turns into an Ed Sheeran commercial after this.
Yeah, they're trying to turn this thing into an Ed Sheeran vehicle, and I'm not having it.
No.
The guy looks like a meat muppet. You went to the deli, you said, can I get 156, let's be generous, 165 pounds of loose meat with some red hair sprinkled at the top and a pair of glasses, and he'll have several hit albums and perform at Wembley Stadium? Tim, I don't understand it.
And you shouldn't. Court is the place he should be performing, and that's where he will be performing for the next 18 months. And I think that's fair.
Yeah, defending his theft. Allegedly.
Anyway, Ed Sheeran hears it and comes over to his house to invite him to be his opening act.
Right.
And so the first show, I believe, is in Moscow. It's this where he plays back in the USSR to a wildly over-enthusiastic crowd, given that specific song.
I agree. I want to point out, Tim, we've been woefully neglectful of somebody who's been in a lot of these scenes, and that is the loser friend / roadie, Rocky.
Oh, right. Yes.
Because when he gets on the private plane, Ed Sheeran's plane to open for him in Moscow, he brings Rocky as his road manager, and he busts on him for rapping. And there's like a 1.5-minute scene where Rocky does not get that he needs to get the fuck going and stop this conversation, and just keeps trying to rap with Ed Sheeran.
They have a rhyme
fucking
off.
Great. Yeah, I think they both lost.
Yeah, but he does have a great bit. Oh man, I love it, especially when you rap. And I will give Ed Sheeran this, the hopeful look on his face, followed by the crushing defeat whenever Rocky's just like, no, man.
Maybe leave it to the brothers, so.
That is great.
Yeah, it's fucking hilarious. So you're right. He goes and he opens for him in Moscow, and this is, you see Ed Sheeran fuming in the wings. Like, you can tell he's like, oh, shit. This guy's way better at musicking.
Yeah, it quickly becomes clear that Ed Sheeran is indeed a hack, and Jack is clearly the better musician. There's a scene where they go off and write a song on the spot.
Yeah, they have a song off, which on the surface, I'm not really sure. Was this supposed to be a joke, or were we supposed to just walk away feeling like Ed Sheeran's a dickhead? Because, let's say I'm a world-famous ham sandwich pop star.
I think you just leave it with a world-famous ham sandwich.
Right, ginger ham sandwich, and I come to you and I say, hey, Tim, I'm going to go to Moscow and perform. You want to open for me? And then you do, and then in the after party, in front of everyone on the cast, crew, friends, family, I'm like, hey, this thing that you're an amateur at and I'm a professional, let's compete in front of everyone, right?
It does
like,
seem
that
dickish.
is somebody looking to belittle you. And then he just beats him into the ground. I don't remember what he plays, but it's fucking good.
He plays Long and Winding Road.
Yeah, he does.
And I do love the, okay, so let's vote. And Sheeran just has to be like, nope, let's not vote. You win. You're better. I'm going to go to bed. I'm so sad.
I'm a petty, hideous little man.
Also, notably at this show, there's a weird Russian giant that witnesses this show, and after they're cleaning up, he just stands there in the audience, and it becomes clear that at least a couple other people also remember the Beatles, and he is shocked to hear it.
Yeah, he seems angry or happy. We're not sure which, because you don't really know what happened in those 12 seconds. Are they time travelers? Is this some sort of quantum leap? I don't know.
The movie never really addresses what happened, and I think that's probably to its credit. It shouldn't, but it could be even less vague. They don't have to have the worldwide blackout. They could just have the accident.
Okay. This is where we meet Kate McKinnon as the blood-sucking record executive from Hollywood.
Yes.
And I have no problem with it. She's like way over the top, but I find it funny.
It's funny. There's too many scenes of her doing this.
Yeah, you can tell there were definitely some takes where they're like, just go, Kate, just do it. And I think you're right. It just goes on a little too long. He goes to Hollywood. She says, hey, I can make you a big fucking star, but you just got to do what I say. And she wants him to lose weight, get a better image, work with a publicist, the big marketing team. We'll get to that stage later, and really package the delivery of the hot new thing.
Right.
Unless you're Little Nas X, in which case you just make a weird fucking song in your basement and the world says yes.
Yeah, so she takes him to LA. He leaves Ellie behind because, again, they have to work in this rom-com thing.
Okay, I want to pause there for a minute, Tim. This is a legitimate question, because at this moment is when I went, oh shit. this is a romantic comedy.
Yeah, until this moment, I was completely unaware that she was into him.
This is now the second romantic comedy that you have roped me into.
That's not true. Shop Girl we agreed to go to together, and it was delightful. You love Steve Martin. You love Jason Schwartzman.
I love long scenes about glove purchases.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so this is the moment, Tim. This is the pivotal point where I went, fuck, this isn't going to be very good. To my mind, this is where all romantic comedies break down, because it is very obvious he's about to become one of the most wealthy, famous human beings on the planet. Nobody would question that. And for whatever reason, he can't figure out that this chick is deeply in love with him, and all he has to do is say, quit your fucking teaching job, come with me to LA, boom, problem solved.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's strange that he can't figure that out if this were a real person. However, the way the movie frames this and frames the scenes, I didn't figure that out either, because it's really poorly demonstrated up until this point.
The moment that I knew she was into him is when you first meet Rocky, the roadie loser, and he's just like, I can see you're still putting it to whatever her name is, Kate? Ellie, thanks. And she turns around and she goes, no, not ever, not once. And I was like, oh, she wants that to happen.
Yeah, in hindsight. Well, here's the problem. I didn't think this was going to be a romantic comedy, so I completely ignored that.
You know what? That's fair, because I paused on it and I was like, no. This has way too good of a concept to waste it on that. It can't be a romantic comedy. But by the point that we get to where he goes off to Hollywood and she just has to stay because she has a life here, which she doesn't. Her life there is garbage compared to what he could give her. And that's where I started to sour on this baby. But we'll continue. He goes off to Hollywood. They're going to have a big launch in a couple of weeks. This is where we go into the studio.
So he's in the studio for a while, and they're kind of talking back and forth. She calls him a couple of times, tells him that she's now dating the guy that lent them studio time originally.
And this is my second moment where I was like, wait, what's happening? I'm super unclear how much time has passed.
That's another huge issue, because as far as I know, he's only played the one concert. The concert in Moscow is the only one that they show him playing on Sheeran's tour, because she approaches him after the one show.
Doesn't he go home first to say goodbye to her before he goes off to LA? Okay, let me look at my notes. Moscow Man knows back in the USSR. Petty Ed Sheeran makes him write a new song. He goes home and they have the little party and he goes upstairs to pack. And she's like, I can't come with you. I have a life. Why are you saying this to me now? And the dad interrupts him twice. And that's the moment that for whatever reason he doesn't just say, yeah, just come with me. So he goes off to Hollywood. So that's the pivotal moment. So from that moment to when she calls to say, I'm dating the producer that made your first demo, how long do you think that was?
Like 4 days.
Right?
Yeah. It's really
I was going to put it
bizarre.
at a crisp 48 hours.
Yeah.
Which makes the whole conversation crazy. After he learns that she is now banging the studio producer, he needs to clear his head. He can't remember all the lyrics, so he goes off to Liverpool to visit the places that these songs were written about. Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane. He goes to the church, which is now demolished, where Eleanor Rigby is buried.
Right.
I could see how going there would help you to remember what the songs were about.
Yeah. There's also, in the scene where he goes to the graveyard, there's a British lady who's kind of following him around. It's clear that she knows who the Beatles are, and it kind of has this almost horror movie vibe. It kind of seems like she might kill him.
Right.
Yeah.
Like she caused this, and she's like, you don't understand. We get no Beatles, but we never had a 9/11. In our world, the Jews killed the Nazis. Ooh, Tim, tough call. Reverse Holocaust, but no Beatles. Holocaust with the Beatles. You must answer.
I must not.
Answer inferred. Back to this movie.
So
Tim.
he's in Liverpool and he's at his hotel. Ellie calls him and says she is also in Liverpool. And they go out on a date, I guess their first ever date. They go eat, they get kind of drunk, they come back to his hotel room, and they almost bang, but then they don't bang.
And I was super confused by that for two reasons. One, if you watch the montage of them going out and drinking, and then when they return to the hotel, you see all the minibar bottles lined up on the TV, they should be legally dead.
Yeah.
They did like, I don't know, 28 shots each.
Yeah.
Because it's clear they're trying to sell like they're just super nervous, so they're trying to get a little drunk so that they're a little more forward with one another. But Tim, I'm no prude, but it seemed a bit irresponsible. But right, the second part, they don't bang.
Yeah, well, again, Garrett, I don't know if you've ever had 28 shots, but it is difficult to bang. There's like
I wonder if that was his motivation. She's just like, I really want this to be a long-term thing, not a one-night stand. And he's just like, oh, good, because this is just not going to happen. It's going to be a lot of mouth stuff, and then I was going to fake it with a conditioner bottle.
Yes.
Okay. But so my notes literally say in this moment, bangs the manager. Oh, wait, nope, they didn't.
Yep.
And, sorry, because we get a flashback here.
Yes, and this is confusing. There's a joke earlier in the movie that Oasis doesn't exist. And the joke is that Oasis is a ripoff of the Beatles, right?
So without the Beatles, we never get Oasis.
Right. The flashback is the moment that Ellie falls in love with him. And it's this 8th grade talent show. He plays a cover of Wonderwall on stage, and you kind of get this view of her standing behind the curtains watching him, and it's clear like this is the moment she falls in love.
Right. And it's important that she has just walked out on the opportunity to bang, feeling as though I've waited my whole life for this. How are you just now realizing it? And you're going to do it just when you're going to turn around and go back to LA, which again, come with me.
Yeah, and also
don't go back to Shrewsbury or wherever the fuck this movie's taking place. Get on the plane. I'm a bajillionaire. You should see the contract I signed and live with me in splendor.
Right, and also he's not necessarily moving to LA. He's going there to promote an album. Seems ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, just come with me.
Yeah.
But you're in my point, and I love that we came to this separately because we have fucking rules. So we did not watch this together. We started it at the exact same time in each respective guest room, and then we came back into the middle central room for sleeping, eating, and fights. It seems as though in that moment, what they're trying to say is there was never a Wonderwall, which means he never performed Wonderwall at the talent show, and she never fell in love with him. So when given the opportunity to actually bang, she doesn't have that emotional draw to him.
I don't think that's what they're saying. I think...
Well, okay, hold on. Sorry. That's what I think they should have been saying. Sorry. And that's what I thought they were saying.
Right. And the problem is they show you that scene in a world in which the Beatles never existed, Oasis never existed, so what the fuck did he play?
What I thought was happening is that he was remembering that must have been when she fell in love with him, because she mentions that she's been his manager ever since that moment, which the audience is to infer fell in love with. So I thought what was happening is he was remembering that and going, oh shit, there's no Wonderwall. I probably never played it, which means she never fell in love with me. But that isn't the case. Your question remains valid for the actual movie that takes place. What did he play?
Right.
And why did she still fall in love with him playing that? I guess she was just in love with him. It doesn't matter. But why show it at that exact moment in the film if that's not the point they were trying to make?
Right.
And then your whole third act is set up. You can choose the woman whom you should have always loved and was always there for you, or you can choose superstardom, but you can't have both.
Right. But the point still remains, if she's never heard that song,
right,
why does she have this journey with him? Because the movie implies that that is the moment that not only does she believe in his career, but that she falls in love with him. Without the song Wonderwall existing,
he would have had to play something else.
Well, the other option is she thinks he wrote Wonderwall. If the Beatles never existed, if Oasis never existed, there's a chance the movie is trying to say, and if it does, it's saying this really poorly, that she thought he was a great songwriter because she thought he wrote Wonderwall.
Oh, God, I think you're right.
I don't think that's what the movie is saying, though.
I think you're right. I think that's what they're trying to say, is that's why she... Well, boy, no, that doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make sense
either, because in the original story, before the blackout, she still had those same feelings based on him playing a cover. Garrett, this movie is bad.
I know. In that moment, it's clear, or it's not clear, actually. I was going to say, it seems as though, for whatever reason, she just doesn't want to bang him. Aside from, she does say that she doesn't want it to be a one-night stand, and since he's going back to LA, it would be one-night stand, which, again, as you and I have covered, no, it wouldn't. The private jet has lots of seats. We'll leave Rocky. Who gives a shit about him?
Yeah, we'll kill Rocky. That could be our
that
thing.
He's terrible. Well,
relationship needs a deep, dark secret to bind two people together, and the easiest way to bind two people together based on that theory, secret murder.
Glad you didn't say ass to mouth.
Oh my God.
What, you were all about human centipeding people a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that's because those guys suck, and they ruined my week.
Fair enough. Okay.
We think she leaves. She goes back to her hotel room. He wakes up in the morning and is like, fuck, I made a mistake. So he runs down. There's this classic rom-com thing where he chases her to the train station. Rocky goes goes one way, he goes one way. They try to stop. The train leaves, but it turns out she wanted crisps because she is British.
Right. She never left. She's still at the station. He sits down with her to say all the things he's always should have said. And this is the moment I officially don't like the movie. So they set it up to where all of a sudden Rocky's dipping his head and he's like, hey, you're supposed to be on a marketing call and Kate McKinnon is super pissed off at you. Like, can we get going? We're supposed to be getting on an airplane. He says, I really want to finish this conversation. And she says, well, if you want to, then just stay. And he kind of looks at her and she realizes he's not going to stay because, millions of dollars and fame and Beatles and such. Again, why don't we have this conversation on the way to the airport? And then in the airport, and then on my private plane, and then in Hollywood at the fucking Chateau Marmont.
The other option is tell Rocky, listen, get the fuck out of here. I'm going to be an hour late because it's a private plane and the world is just jizzing all over me right now after dark.
Yeah.
So I can be an hour late. It'll be fine.
Absolutely.
It will be
everyone
fine.
can eat a dick.
Yeah. This album is going to sell hundreds of millions of copies. It will be fine if I'm an hour late to a stupid marketing meeting.
Yeah, let's be adults here. I say no to people all day, every day. It's the only way I can get anything done.
Yeah, it's ruining my life, by the way.
Right, making mine a lot easier. All my notes say here is secret romantic comedy, but it's not a secret. It's not fair. It's false advertising.
Yeah.
Here's a really good premise, directed by Danny Boyle, written by the guy who did Bridget Jones's Diary. What? Nothing? It's got the Beatles. You love them, right?
And the way it was advertised, none of this was really mentioned in the trailers. The only hint of any sort of romantic plot line in this movie, there's a scene where the scene's not in the movie, but he goes on the James Corden show and he's sitting there and James Corden says something to the effect of, why don't you write us something right now? And so then he gets his guitar out and he plays something while staring like Garrett wishes he looked at some actress that's on the couch next to him.
Wait, what?
Oh, sorry. You were in high school. You once did exactly this, but with your own thoughts, and no one was interested.
Yeah, my mode of expression and the content therein was objectionable.
Right. That was the way the movie was sold to me as well.
Maybe say from the people that brought you. Bridget Jones's Diary.
That's not what you should do. What you should do is not make this a romantic comedy.
Well, sure, obviously in a perfect world, but all things being equal, it got made. Just mention real quick, from the folks that brought you, Notting Hill. Great. That's great. I don't need to see this. I mean, I do find Reese Irfan's to be delightful in that film. But so back to this movie, Tim, this is when he does leave, goes back to LA, and we go to the marketing meeting and we watch a man's soul be consumed.
Yeah.
He goes to this big marketing meeting. It's exactly what you're picturing. Everybody in tones of gray and black, while the head of the team delivers his vision for Jack Malek's new album. And they give it some bullshit name. So it's all this pomp and circumstance with a bunch of people that are talking about all of the different suggestions he made. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, the White Album, Abbey Road, and how ridiculous all of those are. And then they come out with their version. They give it some shitty name, and he realizes that I'm just a fucking package and I don't really have any say. And I think they're trying to say something in this scene, right?
Yeah, they do the whole, in a world where all tracks have 15 producers and 18 songwriters, something we've complained about on this very show. This is a song written by one guy, played by one guy.
They do this big introduction where they talk about the downloads have been huge. The time is now. We're going to release Jack Malek's new double LP. You can tell that the love and attachment he has and you and I have, and I suspect most of our listeners, there's always a few out there that fucking hate the Beatles. I just don't get you guys.
Yeah, email us because those are always interesting.
Yeah, no, I really do want to hear it because, you and I rip on shit all the time, and I'm sure there's some people out there with great points. I'm just curious. But in any event, you can see that the emotional attachment and meaning he has and reverence for this music is held by him only. Every other person in that room just sees dollars.
Right. So at this point, the album is done, and it's time to figure out where he's going to debut it to the world. His choice is a rooftop concert in some random town in England.
Somewhere he had visited with Ellie once to do a show, only to find out the hotel had been closed.
So he goes and they're going to do this rooftop concert. Before that, there's this press conference in which in the back of the room, somebody yells, which is your favorite Beatle, John, Paul, George, or Ringo, and is holding up a yellow submarine.
Yeah.
And he's kind of freaked out. Again, it has a kind of a horror movie vibe to it at this point. It's very strange.
Yeah. There's huge strings and the camera's whisking around. He's disoriented. He's not sure what's happening. I thought it was going to start switching back and all of a sudden he's at a press conference and everyone's like, why are you ripping off the Beatles. But that would be way too interesting, folks. We are knee-deep in a romantic comedy at this point, so strap the fuck in for the rest.
Yes. He plays on the roof. He plays Help in what's my probably least favorite performance in this. Kind of just strikes the wrong tone for me. But he goes backstage. Somebody brings in a yellow submarine and says there's two people here to meet him.
And for some reason, he's okay with that.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of interested. Or possibly he realizes he's about to be murdered in this very room and has made his peace with that. So the two people that come in are the Russian guy from the Moscow concert and the lady that saw him at Eleanor Rigby's grave. And the movie just glosses over the fact, how the fuck did these people meet? How did they get tickets to this show?
Well, it's a movie.
Right, okay, fair enough.
I was super curious to see what was going to happen. I was curious if they were going to try to kill him.
Or just scream at him. Just be like, what are you doing?
Expose him?
Yeah, exactly. Blackmail him, perhaps?
Yeah, but they don't. That would all be way too interesting. Well, instead, they actually express my viewpoint on the whole thing.
Yes, I think this is actually a fairly interesting take on it, too. They basically thank him. They say, the world wouldn't be the same without these songs. I don't care that you're stealing them. I don't care that you're making a shit ton of money off this. I'm just happy that I get to hear them once again. And neither of us can sing, so...
They do make an excellent joke in this where they allude back to a scene we see earlier when he's in the studio. It was in the trailer, and they're like, you didn't get all the lyrics right. And he's like, yeah, I know, it's not easy to remember all of it. And they're like, yeah, no worries. But also like, hey, dude. He's like, that's bloody Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran did ruin Hey Dude.
Yeah, I fucking love when Sheeran's in the sound booth and he's just like, do. No, that's horrible. So they're just happy that somebody with a musical ability is playing this music. And that's exactly how I felt.
Sure. And then they give him a piece of paper and they say it took a lot of work, but here you go. And they don't really explain what the paper is. And then I think the next scene he's driving by the seaside and they stop at somebody's house and who comes out?
Mr. John Lennon.
Yep.
How did you feel about this, Tim? Be honest.
I really liked this.
Fucking nailed it. I was horrified when I figured out what was happening.
Yeah.
And then they nailed it.
It wouldn't surprise me if they had tried to get Ringo or Paul to play this role and they both said no. This would be a worse movie had they said yes, though, because the sheer emotion of he's alive. Like, that's enough. He didn't get shot by some maniac in New York. He lived 39 years longer.
The whole scene is so good because you just see him asking, like, was your life good? And he's like, yeah, it was a good life. And the guy plays it so well.
The good thing about it is they resist the temptation to have him, like, quote Beatles lyrics, which would have cheapened the whole thing.
Oh, I was 100% waiting for him to just be like, all you need is love.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay.
Super happy they didn't do that. I don't have any problem with what they did here, though. It's a little weird, but it's kind of interesting that it's a little weird. John Lennon lives by himself. He's not plugged into pop culture. Part of the advice he gives him is basically to be honest with people and to go win Ellie back.
He tells him to fight. He tells him to fight and be honest.
Yes.
And I gotta say, I think he took the wrong message.
Right. I think he misinterpreted the advice.
Right. So he goes and he very common, he sets it up so that he can play some guest songs at Ed Sheeran at like Wembley Stadium or something. He gets Ellie backstage for whatever reason, and they put the backstage camera on him, and he admits to her and the world that he loves her and that he didn't write the songs that he has been performing.
Right.
And I was furious. What good does this do anyone?
None whatsoever.
None.
He has Rocky upload all the songs to the internet, which angers Kate McKinnon. She begins chasing them. Like you're saying, it does nobody any good because he could just keep his fucking mouth shut, maybe accept a shit ton of money and donate it to charity. I don't really know, but
yeah, there's just 100,000 other ways to do this that aren't this, and it isn't super disappointing.
Right. So he runs off with Ellie. The studio manager guy is super cool about it. He's apparently the unsung hero of this movie.
That was super awkward. She breaks up with him in front of the other guy.
Yeah, she's just like, well, I'm clearly going to bang this guy. And he's just like, yeah, I know. I was only keeping her warm for you, dude.
Yeah, he's so delightfully British. Just like, oh, yeah, I always knew you'd come back for her. kind of man are you, man?
Yeah,
what kind of person are you?
Here's the thing. One, what you're saying. The other, if you know somebody's going to end up dating somebody else, don't fuck them. Come on.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. It's just like, is he getting off on that? It's just like, you know what I like? I like to know that I'm inside you right now, and later he'll be inside you, but I've been here first.
After dark. After dark.
Yeah, that's British After Dark. After Dark. So much more fun. Okay, Tim, what else about this movie do you want to talk about? I feel like there's some shit that you've been pocketing away.
Well, there's a little coda on the end here because
oh, right. Sorry.
They run away, they bang.
Thus ruining what I thought was going to happen entirely. I thought that the whole, like, Wonderwall didn't exist, therefore she never fell in love with him, which means she can't bang him now in this universe. And that's an interesting, weird Twilight Zone sort of a deal. Like, you got all the fame in the world, but the one woman whom you could have had before but can never have now, you're never going to get. That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
But instead, he gets the girl, gives up the fame, and ends up back where they started as a teacher performing. What does he sing at the end?
Obla-dee, obla-da.
Obla-dee.
Hey man, if you're performing at a school, that's not a bad choice.
Oh, you know what? That's a very good point.
Yeah. And they have a couple of kids, it looks like.
Yeah, that's weird, right? They have like a little montage of them like growing old.
Yeah, it kind of does a jump cut. So after we have this movie that's 3.5 days of his skyrocketing to fame, the last
and plummeting back to obscurity.
Right. And that's the thing. He can give up fame, but fame will never give up on this guy, right? He was the most famous person in the world. And from an outsider's perspective, if you saw fucking like the career of Jack White happen in a month, right? He writes all 6 White Stripes albums and releases them in a month and then gets on stage and announces he never wrote them. Some 4 guys you've never heard of and never will hear of wrote them. He would still be extremely famous. The other thing I kind of wondered, I don't know if he says the last name. He might just say John, Paul, George, and Ringo wrote these songs.
No last names.
Okay.
I checked.
Because otherwise, he just ruined John Lennon's life.
Right. The best case scenario for him in this, what he's now done, is they figure out who they are, and these people go, I didn't write this shit. Leave me alone.
The other interesting thing would be if John, Paul, George, and Ringo, I guess they wouldn't know him as Ringo, but all knew each other. And I would like a Paul McCartney call to 70-something-year-old John Lennon to just be like, did that guy just say we wrote a bunch of songs?
Or, here's a really fun movie. Gives a call to fucking John Lennon, and he's just like, did you see what's going on the TV? They took us songs, John.
That would be great if the Beatles had have just been an obscure band in Liverpool. Like that's
it's just
what
a
it
garage
changed.
band of 4 fathers who perform on the weekends.
This is clearly 2 movies inappropriately and weirdly put together. The movie we were sold is flawed, but it's this interesting high concept movie. It's more often phrased as if you could go back in time, right? If you could transport yourself back to like 1960, knowing everything you know now, you could steal the career of the Beatles.
You said it correctly. It's 2 movies. It's the first movie and the second movie. And I mean that like 4 different ways. Because the first screenplay had no love interest. The first screenplay had him not rising to fame. It was only after they were like, nah, that's fucking boring, man. No one's going to pay $10 million for Beatles songs to have a bunch of people say that they're not very good. What we'll do is he'll get in love with a manager, classic rom-com situation, meets her at the train station, plane, whatever, we don't care. And so they smash the 2 together. So it's the first idea and the second idea, and somehow Danny Boyle got involved. I don't understand that.
Trainspotting. They saw Trainspotting. So that's our guy.
I guess.
The problem, I guess, with the 2 stories is that they don't really revolve around the other. The Beatles part exists by itself, and the romantic comedy part, you could put literally any other story device in there and have that completely the same.
Absolutely.
If he had made it on his own, if he found like an ironic monkey's paw and wished for fame, like it all stays the same.
Yeah, it just has to be some reason they geographically move from one another. He could have gotten a new job teaching in, what's a delightfully British sounding place? North Shire of Brookhaven.
Shepherd's Pieville.
Yeah, I like yours.
Another way they could have made the love story relate to the Beatles is, let's say that Jack didn't get out of the car and bike home. Jack and Ellie are driving home. They get in an accident together. Both of them are the only 2 that remember the Beatles. No one else does. Now you have a conflict. Ellie loves his old songs. She's in love with him. She's in love with the person that wrote the original songs. He has this opportunity now to actually be famous. So now you have a reason for there to be a conflict between the 2. He wants to be famous. She wants him to play the old songs and be true to himself. That's a way that these things can work together.
Yeah, but fuck that. Or, as I said earlier, you either get the fame or the girl, and you have to choose.
Right. Who made the Yellow Submarine toy?
Unclear.
All right. The other really huge issue that this raises is the Beatles' music on its own just devoid of the cultural context around its original creation. Is it good enough? And they kind of go with that. They start off with Yesterday. They start off with Let It Be. And then you have these other songs like Back in the USSR.
They're trying to ask the question, could the Beatles exist today? And they start off with you thinking yes, because he's playing, some of the best music they ever made. But then to your point, it switches gears and they also mix in things like Back in the USSR and other songs of that caliber, which great songs, no worries. But the fact that the public today reacts the exact same way to all of them robs it of the credibility or of any even question of whether or not the film wanted to explore, could you be popular with Beatles music?
Yeah.
Again, that was the first version of the screenplay. Moderately successful, mediocre at best. People didn't like it. Man, I think you would struggle with a lot of the Beatles catalog to try to become popular today. Do you even think it would be half?
At least half of it could achieve indie success. I think if you just package the 27-song One compilation, I think absolutely. And I think that's what they were kind of going for here.
I hope they do a sequel where he gets hit by a different bus and he wakes up and Wings never existed. And he's just like, all right, that's fine.
Doesn't need to exist.
We're good.
It really feels like there was a 4-hour cut where everything made sense, like the time gaps, the way that the Ellie plot worked into the Beatles plot, and then somebody was just like, well, we can't have a 4-hour movie, we have to trim this down. Maybe Danny Boyle didn't get final cut, or maybe they just gave him a restriction, like a Justice League-esque restriction, where he's like, okay, it has to be an hour 45 or whatever.
And then Joss Whedon's going to come in and shoot a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. The other thing that you could do is have him just get hit by a bus, and there's no global event that happens. Then you have
the whole is he crazy element of it.
Exactly.
Did the Beatles ever exist?
Exactly, because that way there's a conflict there too between, is he stealing these songs, or did he just have this moment of genius whenever he got hit by the bus and he came up with all these songs?
I think you're confusing the word conflict with plot.
That's
we
fair.
have written 4 better versions of this movie and you really liked it. So
Yeah. The other thing that this movie really should have done, you hear the two people that remember the Beatles, they talk about, oh, our lives were worse without this music. But there seems to have only been a 2-week gap where they haven't been able to hear it.
It was clearly days, maybe weeks.
Right. You could do an 11/22/63 kind of thing with this, where you actually imply that the loss of the Beatles had historical consequences. So maybe Mark David Chapman didn't get arrested for shooting John Lennon and he did something way worse in 1984. Just explore anything. I want a reboot of this movie, and I want it to be way better.
Wings sequel causes World War III. Super Hitlers.
Not just one. Everyone in Germany becomes a super Hitler as a result of Wings not existing.
I'm curious, Tim, how did this do?
It did pretty well. So far, it has made $146 million. I think that's just in theaters on, again, a $26 million budget.
Not bad.
Maybe we'll get that Wings sequel you were hoping for.
What did people think of it?
It kind of got a middling review from critics. It had a 63 on Rotten Tomatoes, 56 out of 100 on Metacritic, and an A- on CinemaScore, which is audience polls. That seems about right to me. An initial reaction to the concept, A-, and then you start to think about it and you sit there, what works, what doesn't. Yeah, you could probably be brought down to 56 to 63, somewhere in there. Amazon has a 4.2 out of 5 stars on average, 64% 5-star, 8% 1-star, and I have a few reviews for us. The first one is from Auntie C, who titled her review, "Streaming Amazon Prime worked perfectly. Great film, 5 stars."
Her review was less about the film and a little bit more about the streaming service?
I apologize, Garrett. That was just the title. I have yet to read the review.
God damn it.
I am a lady of a certain age. Ha ha ha. 62. And grew up listening to the Beatles. If you're a fan from back when, this tale will have you falling in love with them all over again. It's a comedy and OMG. When will it unravel suspense and a wild ride and a fun romp of a movie? Amazon streaming worked great. I am new to it, so I was nervous about it. Made my weekend. Totally loved the movie, and I did not need to set foot out of my door or change out of my leggings and t-shirt to get a film. LOL. The movie? Absolute 5-star enjoyment. So fun.
Where was she gonna go?
The theater, friend.
Oh. I thought this poor woman is going to empty Blockbusters looking for movies.
Somebody really did a favor by telling her about streaming.
Yeah, I like that she was nervous about it.
Oh yeah, she was real scared.
What's gonna happen?
Josiah titled his review, Almost Brought a Tear to My Eye. Simple, brilliant, and beautiful. The kind of honestly sweet parable that just doesn't get made in America anymore. Only a total cynic, or a bigot, could seriously pan this film. I started to tear up in a few places, and that never happens. Best movie in a long time. So, Garrett, I have a question for you.
God damn it.
Are you a cynic or a bigot?
Oh, cynic. Okay, that was much easier.
I disagree.
What about you?
Bigot.
Yeah, we all knew that. For the listeners, though, to be fair, Tim's biases and prejudices, they are so wildly untraditional, you can't even get angry at him. He literally screams hate speech at jelly packets. He hates jelly.
Yep.
I don't even know what to call it. I'm a jam man might be the new shirt.
Oh.
You know what? I can't stand marmalade.
I go back and forth. Depends.
I just don't feel like citrus belongs in a spread.
Well, it doesn't have to be a citrus marmalade, Garrett.
I believe the formal definition of a marmalade is an orange.
I don't think so. You know what? Next episode, instead of music, instead of movies, we will dive into citrus and marmalade.
I was going to say all jellies, jams, and spreads.
Garrett, it's an hour episode. We can't fit all that in.
New spin-off podcast, Spreading Me Thin. A weekly podcast on jellies, jams, spreads, butters, Nutella. We're doing it all, folks.
Yes.
If you can put it on a surface and put that surface in your mouth, we're going to talk about it.
Gross.
Spread Me
After
Thin
dark.
every Wednesday. That was not an After Dark.
It will turn into an After Dark, Garrett. Joseph Culp, if you are a true Christian, don't waste your money. Hi all, my family and I had good seats to see this movie when the Holy Spirit prompted me to check Ted Baer's movie guide review and the plugged in online movie review, and both said that this movie pairs God's name followed by the D blank blank N word and 7 misuses of Jesus' name in vain. One of the 10 commandments is to not take God's name in vain. There was/is no reason why the writers of this movie had to say God and Jesus' name in vain. Be true to God, save your money, and God will bless your faithfulness. Thank you. 1 out of 5 stars.
Oh my God.
9 people found that helpful, and it brought up 18 comments, most of which were arguing about what does and does not consist of taking God's name in vain. However, my favorite of the responses is simply, that was a goddamn weird review.
Is that your review?
That was Michael Fontanelli.
Fonts, you did it again. All right, Tim, great reviews. Who is this for?
I think me.
Yeah, it was made for you and I, and then it was hijacked by Bridget Jones and her diary, and we ended up with this hacky mess at the end.
Yeah, Dick Curtis sucks. If you have a high tolerance for shoehorned in romantic subplots where they don't belong and are also a fan of the Beatles, I think you'll enjoy this movie. If you can go in without a critical eye, I think you'll enjoy this movie.
Yeah, if you know it's a romantic comedy that kind of fizzles out towards the end, but you really like listening to Beatles covers, there's some great ones in there. Okay, is there anything we need to say about this movie for final thoughts that we have not said?
God, no.
No, not at all, right? So I'm going to ask it, Tim. Do you hate this movie?
Nope.
Wow.
No, I don't. Again, I might honestly recommend it. I think it's a bad movie for the most part. Still kind of like it. What about you? Oh, I feel like you got to hate.
I touched it. I touched hate.
Just the tip?
Just the tip. But you know what? The tip don't count, Tim. I don't hate this movie.
Let's watch it again tonight.
We might. I don't like it. It's not good. I am going to hunt out that original script and see if I can read it because I have a sneaking suspicion that it is a much better film.
Almost certainly.
I actually feel bad for Himesh Patel because Joaquin Phoenix, walk the lines this. He's a good actor. I have no problem with him. I enjoyed watching him on the TV screen, and people largely will not see this. And then when they do, most people will assume he's not singing and playing the music.
Well, Garrett, I've got some really great news for you. If you liked his performance in this, there's 556 episodes of EastEnders that you could get a little more Himesh Patel in your life.
Folks, join us on our new podcast, EastEnders from the West. That's where Tim and I, a couple of 1-2 Westerners, try to understand your weird colloquialisms and customs. That's every Thursday, EastEnders from the West.
It's a great name.
Thank you. It's no everything spreads or whatever I say.
All right, Garrett.
Yes.
You don't hate this. I like it. I probably will watch it again, at least for the Beatles parts.
You like it, but you're a little ashamed.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying it. I had a good time. I'm a little exhausted after watching it. I have to admit that I enjoyed it. But yeah, there's a little bit of shame wrapped in there as well.
Yeah, a lot of good ideas put to waste. All right, Tim, that takes us to listener mail. That's where Tim and I each pick a single piece of correspondence, a review, an email, something we thought that was particularly funny online from you, the listener, and we bring it to the show. My listener mail this week is a little different than usual. We got a follow-up email from somebody who writes in fairly often, Sean. Sean, following up on our Falling in Reverse episode, he writes in, "Thanks for doing one on Ronnie Radke. I have a history with this douche. I've known him for years. He was never a, quote, runaway, nor was his mother a junkie, allegedly. He was a spoiled suburban middle-class kid, allegedly. He created this character. He is a complete phony and the main reason someone innocent is dead. Thanks again for shredding this piece of shit. Well deserved. Allegedly. Sean is, of course, not saying that he believes this, but people are saying it, and he's letting us know, the show, that it is being said. But he's not personally saying these things. Sean, you're welcome.
Except for the part about the innocent guy being dead. That is confirmed fact.
Yeah, that is a legal fact. So, Tim, I wrote back, what are we talking about here? You have a history with this guy? How dare you be so vague, Sean? And so Sean wrote back, since 2004, his old band played with Escape the Fate a few times. Radke used to come to their show before he started that band and was actually kind of a fan of theirs.
Oh.
I implore you, though, we've got a channel to this guy. Let's get Radke on the show. Man, do you know how intense that would get?
Oh.
Because that guy's an idiot, and we know everything about his horrible, horrible past.
But here's the thing, Garrett. Me wrestling him to submission and then holding him while you call the police is not going to make for great audio. Also, I'm not sure the police are going to do anything at this point.
No, well, that's how we end the interview, Tim.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. I'm going to wrestle him up front. I can do it again at the end if he gets away.
Okay. Tim, what do you got for us this week?
Well, I have an email for you, and then I have a small correction after that. Hello, my name is Onion Boy. There are a few things I hate more than peppers. They are the worst. You have made my fear worse. I won't describe what you have done to me, as it is horrible. Please have mercy on me and my family. They haven't been fed for 13 days. Please. A good pepper-fearing man, Onion Boy.
What?
I don't know what any of that means. I think it relates to something one of us said on some episode where this is like 96 releases at this point. So
at least.
Yeah, you've got 130 hours probably of us talking that could have come from, and I have no memory of talking about peppers.
Onion Boy, explain yourself. We're sorry that we've made you so uncomfortable. We didn't realize you existed. Explain your pepper phobias. We will be sensitive, or maybe mock the shit out of them. I don't know, but full disclosure, I saw this email when it came in. Tim had, of course, selected it as he should. Tim, good job. Terrifying. So I had read it. And Tim, I'm not going to sleep tonight.
Yeah, we're going to have to listen to every single episode with a notepad looking for any evidence of pepper talk.
Gonna have to get out my yarn and thumbtacks.
Ooh, Pepper Talk. That's a good podcast. Talk peppers.
Don't do my thing.
I also have a small correction. This is from Nia. She just wrote in to let us know Will Smith's name is Willard, not William. I apologize. Of the two of us, I am the one that loves silly names the most. It is neck and neck, but I think I come out on top. It's one of those things, the second I heard somebody say Will Smith's name is, I immediately knew, oh, fuck, it's not William. I know that. I apologize. This one's on me. I should have been calling him Willard all episode.
That was a huge miss. And I mean, we caned the shit out of Kevin. And Gino has been doing push-ups since the moment that email came in. No water breaks, no food. Just a hot plate of tuna fish that I put under his face. Every time he goes down, tuna. Next time you're going to get Willard right, tuna face. Anyway, all right. That brings us to music news of the weird, Tim. Do you want to kick it off or do you want me to?
I can this week. Do something
all right, let's
different.
Change it up.
To start out with, Garrett, you and I both love Jeremy Renner. We love his Amazon store. We love his products. We both have a bunch of flannel that one of us ordered. We've got some crossbows combos that I hope Garrett doesn't figure out how to use.
Most of what you just said's true. Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, his ex-wife, as you would assume, is also not a fan. Sunny Pacheco, is that her name?
It's tough to say.
Okay. Accused him of verbal and emotional abuse. She cited a particular incident when he threatened to kill her while he was drunk and on cocaine. Apparently, he loves cocaine. Allegedly. This is her words, not ours.
Yeah, we're not saying this. His ex-wife is.
Right. There was allegedly a second incident where he got mad enough to put the barrel of a pistol in his mouth and then fired it at his ceiling. He also apparently routinely left cocaine on the kitchen counter within reach of their child, and a big fat allegedly on all of that.
You are just reporting the news. You are not saying these things.
Right. Absolutely. And in case anyone is wondering why that is music news, Jeremy Renner is a musician. Also allegedly.
He is a musician in the story that is told in a Jeep commercial.
Right. Exactly. I think that's the perfect way to say that. In vampire-related news this week, a man in Washington has been charged with felonious assault after he attacked his roommate whom he believed to be a vampire. The article I read says, and I quote, was suspected of using a metal rod to nudge his roommate in the chest, whatever that means. Authorities say the suspect, and I'm quoting here, believed the roommate to have acknowledged being a blood-sucking creature. In case anyone
not a vampire? Some second thing?
It raises a lot of questions, Garrett. He might be some other kind of sucker.
Oh, shit.
Yep.
Well, yeah, but he still said bloodsucker.
Well, right, Garrett, whenever somebody comes to suck something from your body, you just assume it's going to be blood, right? I always do anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
But what if that person approaches you with the intention of sucking soul? If you don't know about soul suckers, you're going to assume they're after your blood.
Sure. I don't remember. Have we ever figured out how one goes about removing the soul from a body?
Maybe.
I feel like it's... Picture a man like standing there, right? Okay? You're just standing there.
Picturing a man, yes.
Great. Is the man wearing any... it doesn't matter. And then a soul sucker comes along, jumps on the man's shoulders, awkwardly positions his head upward, and then opens his mouth inches above that person's mouth, and the soul is sucked up into the demon's mouth.
Okay,
the soul
so
sucker.
In your scenario, a man mounts another man and sucks something out of his mouth.
Okay, let's be childish about it.
I will.
That's obvious. No, what I'm picturing is some sort of reverse CPR.
Oh,
yep.
I apologize. I was being childish.
Foolish now.
Yep.
Yeah. What else you got?
In overstepping their bounds news, James Blunt doesn't seem well acquainted with the Rolling Stones catalog. In an interview with Esquire, he stated, I think most musicians and bands are searching for that one big hit. You know, I think the Rolling Stones are still looking. After which he added, I'm just really lucky to have it right out there at the top of my career. That dumb quote was in reference to his song You're Beautiful, which he seems to think is better than Paint It Black, You Can't Always Get What You Want, Wild Horses, Satisfaction, Mother's Little Helper, Ruby Tuesday, Play With Fire, The Last Time, 19th Nervous Breakdown, Sympathy for the Devil, Gimme Shelter, Street Fighting Man, Jumpin' Jack Flash, Brown Sugar, Tumbling Dice, Rocks Off, and Angie, because James Blunt is an idiot.
To be fair, Tim, and just to be fair, Tumbling Dice or You're Beautiful, it's true.
Toss up.
I saw your face in a crowded room, and I know not what to do. How about now? Oh, get away from me, you fucking...
You said such nice things about me.
Stop crying. God. It's not my song. It was a bit. God, we gotta move on. Do you have any other music news that isn't gonna make you weep?
Got a little in our...
Pull yourself together, man.
I'm sorry. All right, hold on.
Wow.
Okay.
New low.
In our continuing 6699 coverage, Mr. 99 will be getting a 3-part Showtime docu-series called Supervillain. The release date is currently unknown, but it's likely that Showtime isn't announcing it yet due to the very real possibility that he will be murdered between now and the release date, so they're being vague so they can easily push the date back to really provide a nice conclusion to their story.
That seems smart.
Lastly, Garrett, I have some personal cowboy news this week.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's the prominence to which I have raised our ancient order by discussing them on this very show, or possibly just to spite you. I know the Cowboys are not a fan of you as an organization. Some of us are. But I'm being fast-tracked, actually, within the Cowboy organization. Next week, there will be a ceremony to make me a full-fledged member. I'm going to get that hat, Garrett, and I could not be happier. All of my cowboy dreams are coming true. Well, not all of them, but one of my cowboy dreams is coming true. And if you would like to congratulate me, maybe buy me a congratulatory gift, something small but meaningful, something that really shows our shared history, yeah, that would be nice.
It's going to be a hard no. I want nothing to do with your cowboy sex cult.
Garrett, it is not a sex cult. I would know if it's a sex cult.
We'll see. You know what, Tim? You know what? I don't want to have this argument again on the show. Let's table it till after that ceremony. If you get through that ceremony and you can come to me face to face, man to man, on this show and say, I still believe it's not a sex cult, then I'll let it go. I'll never call it a sex cult again.
Deal.
All right. I look forward to this. I think there's going to be a lot of room for growth. Wasn't music news, and don't think I forgot about the fact that you opened with vampire news. You are abusing this segment. All right, Tim. Couple of other stories that happened here recently. Breaking news as of the time of this recording. We actually get to play a little bit of a game with time as we are recording this in the past before you can hear it, because folks, listen, if we want to get them out on time, we got to bank them by a few days. Come on. But that's just to bring you the quality you deserve. Kanye West took to Twitter and he announced the revised release date for his upcoming album, Jesus is King. The album, Tim, comes out, and the accompanying IMAX film of the same name, Friday, October 25th. It is obviously not Friday, October 25th when we are recording this. By the time this episode releases, this album may or may not have been released. What do you put the odds at?
I think it's going to be released. I'm going to say 75% chance it's going to get released.
I was going to go 50-50. I'll go 60-40.
Okay.
60% chance it gets released.
Can our next Prepisode be on the IMAX experience of Kanye West's thing?
Oh, that's a really good idea.
No, we're not doing that. Maybe in the future, but not next time.
Okay, that's fair. I think I'm going to wrap up my music news with one more story, Tim. This week, as we are recording this, Miss Nicki Minaj married her longtime boyfriend, and by that, I mean about a year, Kenneth Zoo Petty.
Oh, congratulations. His middle name is Zoo, you say?
I think it's a nickname.
Oh, okay.
I think. Don't
What do you think he did at a zoo to get that nickname?
I love burning zoos. What can I say? You ever look at a zebra and just think how majestic they are?
Yes, always.
Have you ever looked at a zebra on fire?
Oh, God.
Twice as majestic. No, that is not something Kenneth Zoo Petty did. However, Tim, fans did have mixed reactions to Miss Minaj's nuptial announcement, and that has a little something to do with what Mr. Zoo did do. Kenneth has served some jail time after being convicted of attempted rape when he was 16 years old. According to arrest records, Petty used a knife/cutting instrument to force sexual intercourse with a 16-year-old girl.
Oh, dear.
As a result of the conviction, Petty is registered as a level 2 sex offender on the New York State Sex Offender Registry. So if you're looking for a headshot, head to that website for fun. He is also required to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. Now, that would be bad enough, right, Tim?
I don't think it's bad at all for him. He's got all that Minaj money.
Well, I'm not saying the marriage. I'm saying the horrible thing that he did in his past.
Oh, yes, yes.
That speaks to his character and poor impulse control. Unfortunately, Tim, he has also been arrested 11 times for other crimes ranging from driving on a suspended license to first-degree manslaughter.
Oh, my God. You probably didn't need to say that suspended license thing.
It's called a narrative, you fuck. You gotta build. The manslaughter charge stemmed from the shooting that resulted in the death of Lamont Robinson, for which Petty served 7 years of a 10-year sentence. And that's gonna do it for music news for me, Tim, for this week. And that brings us to my favorite part of the show, the part where we announce what album we are going to be listening to from the moment we hit stop on this recording. You do the honors, sir. What will we be listening to?
For the next 7 days, we will be listening to the debut album of Miss Billie Eilish, When We Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Released earlier this year and suggested by Jeremy Herr, Elise Naomi, and Sarah. Garrett, do you know what one of Billie Eilish's middle names is?
I don't even know what that sentence means.
Do you know any of Billie Eilish's middle names?
Why does she have multiple middle names?
I don't know. You're going to have to wait until next week to find out. But it is fascinating.
Stupid.
It is stupid. It's so stupid. Anyway.
Tim, do you have any frame of reference for Billie Eilish? Have you heard of Billie Eilish?
I've listened to this album actually exactly once after it was recommended. I was driving through Arizona, Garrett. I was going to Zion National Park, where you and I have vacationed at least once, maybe more.
At least.
Unclear.
Possibly.
So I've listened to it all the way through, start to finish, T to B, A to M, them. I know it to be spooky. The only other thing I know about this album is that the song Bad Guy dethroned Lil Nas X's Old Town Road as the number one objectively best song of all time. So
I now hate her.
But we do know that there is one song on this album that is at least as good, if not better, as Old Town Road.
Hard to imagine.
Have you ever heard this?
Not really. I burned my mouth pretty savagely on a pizza at ACL this year, and I had to walk to Juiceland, the Juiceland booth, to get a refreshing beverage so that I could stop the cheese burning.
I'm sorry, are you getting paid by Juiceland?
No. I just enjoy their delicious beverages. And in that walk, I ended up past her stage at an exact moment where somebody stole one of her rings in the crowd. I don't know.
What?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, she was wearing a bunch of rings and she went out there and did a bunch of hand stuff and that's accurate. And somebody she claimed as I walked by, somebody took one of her rings. I'm pretty sure she was just dropped one.
Putin did that to the Patriots owner guy, right? Same deal?
Yeah, absolutely. Did he take Belichick's or did he take Bob Kraft's?
I think he took Kraft's.
No way, dude. I have to look this up. And we're so close to the end, but I have to know. Kraft, God, you win again, you fuck. Somebody Putined that ring. Okay, Tim, hell of an episode. We really got in there this week for a Prepisode. I feel dirty. As always, please rate, review, subscribe. Tell your friends. If you like the show, all we ask is tell somebody else that you think would like it to give it a listen. Well, that's not true. We ask a second thing. If you can get out there and write a review, it makes a huge fucking difference. And have a little fun with it. Then we got people writing about putting us in their tummies, but in a good way. I love it. You end up on the show, you write a review like that. Get creative. We want Tim Antwoord. I would love for our iTunes reviews to become the source of record for all suggested Texas Toast lyrics. Calling all listeners. Load it up. Throw the 5 stars up there. Get it out of the way. We all know what we want to do there. And then move to the more interesting part. Throw some Texas Toast lyrics in there. We will consider them. We have had some contractual issues. Well, I guess that's inaccurate. We've had some plagiarism claims. We had a couple of leaks on some early tracks. They're just something we're messing around with. But Brooks, not done surprisingly, but Brooks was, well, furious. Go to hatepod.com. You can get every episode we've ever done in any format you could ever want or any streaming service that you like. You can also click on Contact Us in the upper left-hand corner, and that's going to give you a fun little form to fill out to write into us. Give us your song submissions, your thoughts, your stories. We love to hear it. Stories about onions and peppers, Onion Boy, keep writing in. Drawings, art submissions, song submissions, we love it all. It asks for an email. That's simply so we can email you back. If you don't want to give it, you can probably write anonymous in there, I think. In any event, you can also just write directly to us at hatePodMail@gmail.com. We will get back to you. We love hearing from you. Tim can't help himself. You can reach out to us directly on Instagram at hatepod or Twitter at albumhatepod, facebook.com/hatepod. Although, to be fair, we don't reply quite as often on the Facebook, but we get there. It's just less immediate. And come on, what are we, 80?
You forgot to ask Nolan one last time. Please stop sending us pictures of us shirtless and making out.
The making out is uncomfortable. They're very funny,
He
though.
sent another one, Garrett, like 10 minutes ago. I just checked my phone.
Shit.
It's the worst. It's worse than it is. Trust me. I promise you it is the worst of all of them. It's so uncomfortable. I mean, they're very good pictures. Nolan, you clearly have a talent for making people uncomfortable, and we commend you for that.
It's super funny.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's not arousing. Say that much.
You can listen to the show on YouTube. I don't remember the URL, but hey, you know how fucking YouTube works. You're welcome. I think that just about does it. For Why I Hate This Album, I have been one of your hosts, Garrett Harvey.
I have been Onion Hoops.
There's cowboys running through my dreams. Nothing's quite the way it seems. I joined the Navy, got kicked out in a week. My facial features aren't distinct. Try to find some meaning in these songs. The genius is a genius, got it wrong. No, it's a lobster murder sex thing. It's the bleaching of the rear. A full assault on both your ears. The riffs are too repetitive. The lyrics make no sense. All the songs are B-sides. The cover art's a mess. to it for a week. Now that week has passed, it's the Why I Hate This Album podcast with Tim and Gary.